I've always been interested in space. I think from the earliest days, since I started reading, I always read science fiction, of course. I was your classic geek as a child. And I really enjoyed the idea of space exploration and astronauts and all of that stuff. So I remember my first computing project at school was to devise a program that basically just cataloged all the space missions and everything they ever did, and I was really excited by it. But when I moved into astronomy was the first time I got to actually look through a telescope, and that was my first year of university, and it was essentially just a transformation. I looked at the craters on the moon, and you got to look through the telescope with your own eyes, and which you don't often get to do these days. And it was just spectacular. You felt like this old-fashioned astronomer looking at the night sky, and it was beautiful. It was really beautiful, and I just thought, that's what I want to do. My mother's a scientist, so I think that helped. But she's a biologist, so she wanted, me to do medicine, as most mothers do these days. But I had an amazing physics teacher at school, and she taught us to question everything. Every time she taught us lessons, she taught us to question everything we ever learned. So often she'd tell us, okay, this is what you have to learn for your exam, but when you get to university, you'll find out it's a lot more complicated than that, or we don't even really know the answer. And that just, it inspired me, because it was like, okay, there's a lot more to learn here. It's not just learning something off by heart and writing it off in an exam paper. And that really excited me. So she was excellent, really good physics teacher. I think the main difficulty is that there aren't many other women in astronomy. It's increasing, it's improving, definitely. Especially since I've started, I've seen a difference. So just in the last 15 years, actually, you see more and more women in astronomy. But especially when you look at the higher levels, you see the numbers of women dropping off. And that becomes a little bit more uncomfortable, because there aren't so many people like you around, essentially. So you start feeling a little bit different, I guess. But it can be an advantage as well. But I think that's the main difficulty, that you just don't see many women. And so you feel like you're not often represented. And that can lead to people seeing you a bit differently than they might otherwise. But that, I think, is the main difference. But there are big advantages to being a woman, too, because in a way you stand out as well. So if you have confidence, and the courage of your convictions, you can actually make a much bigger impression often than other guys in a similar situation. So there are advantages and disadvantages, I think. Looking for planets around other stars is, it's a very hot topic at the moment for obvious reasons. I think everyone has looked up in the sky and wondered, are we alone? So one of the big focuses at the moment in astronomy is to look for other planets around stars that are either like ours or similar to ours, where water can be in liquid form. Because the idea is that if water can be in liquid form, then it's sort of habitable, that basically you can form life in the kind of conditions that we know it on Earth. And so this habitable zone that you have, in which these particular planets that we're all looking for can form, depends very much on the kind of star that they're forming around. So planets form around the star, usually at the same time that the star is forming. So basically many people are trying to find evidence of these planets. But the problem is that most of the light we get is from the star itself. So you somehow have to block out that light to try and detect this tiny signature from the planets. So there are different techniques that you can use to do this. One of the most successful techniques is what Kepler's done, where you have planets transiting, so they cross the disk of the star. And by doing that, the light dims. And by the time that they take to transit, you can work out how far the planet is from the star and how big the planet is. Another way to do it is from a technique called spectroscopy. If you have very high precision spectroscopy, what you can do is you can measure tiny wobbles caused by the radial velocity offset, basically, between the planet and the star. And that is a very effective technique to find planets, and that's something that is being done using ESO's instruments as well. So on the 3.6 meter, we have HARPS, which is a world-leading spectrograph that allows us to be able to start detecting planets that are close to that habitable zone. In fact, my main focus has always been studying the star itself, but we're getting to the point where the signature from the planets is so tiny that you actually have to start worrying about what the star is doing in detail. So my job is to work out how to remove the signature of the star at the level that we can start detecting sort of Earth-sized planets around other stars. I would suggest that you read as much as possible about the area. So read what's happening in popular science journals. You don't need to read really heavy stuff. I would suggest that you talk to as many people as you can find who work in the area, around the area, because then you find out about all the different options. And because you don't just have to be an astronomer, there are many different places you can work. You can be a lecturer, you can work at a place like ESO, in which there are many different kinds of jobs as well. So you can find out where your interests are and feel your way, basically. So I would say don't restrict yourself. Don't say, this is what I have to do and this is the only path to success. Find out what you're curious about and follow your curiosity, I think. Follow your passion, basically. I think I have my dream, honestly. I think so long as I get time to sit and do research and find out new things and be able to exploit technology, new technology that's coming in to get the best possible data and the best possible results, I'm actually basically living my dream. It's the bottom line. I don't think I have much more ambition to be doing much more than I am now. So I'm pretty happy.